Grandmother could put a meal on the table for 6 people with just $4, not because of some kind of magic, but because she understood skills that later generations gradually lost. These meals came out of cramped tenements, sharecropper shacks, and busy immigrant kitchens where both time and money were always in short supply. A handful of beans, the end of a loaf, or even just one egg could be turned into something that fed everyone. And somehow, every one of those meals was ready in 10 minutes or less. Number 22 on this list saved factory workers from going hungry during the Depression when grocery stores wouldn't extend any more credit. Number 14 was once sold from push carts on the Lower East Side for a penny a serving. And number 3 is so simple, so cheap, and so deeply satisfying that once you make it, you'll wonder why you ever ordered takeout. Food companies spent decades convincing us that fast food required a drive-through, that a real dinner needed 20 ingredients and 45 minutes. They were wrong, and somewhere in your family history, somebody already knew that these 25 dinners are coming back. Let's count them down. In 1932, a bag of potatoes cost 9 cents and fed a family of 5 for a week. Grandmothers across Appalachia and the rural Midwest kept this alive through the hardest years America ever saw. Dice 2 potatoes thinly. Drop them into salted boiling water with a diced onion and a clove of garlic. Cook for 8 minutes until soft. Mash some against the side of the pot to thicken the broth. Add a splash of canned milk if you had it, a knob of lard if you didn't. That was it. That was dinner. The starch was the magic. Potatoes release a cloudy, silky liquid when they cook. That turns plain water into something that tastes like it simmered all day. Children scraped the bowls. Fathers had 2 helpings. And nobody at the table felt poor, even when they were. Number 24, fried bologna sandwiches. Working class America ran on this sandwich for 3 decades and somehow forgot to tell the next generation. Bologna cost pennies a slice. You laid 3 pieces flat in a hot, dry pan. The edges curled up first, then the middle blistered and browned. You flipped it once for 30 seconds. You pressed it between 2 slices of white bread with yellow mustard and maybe a ring of raw onion if you had one. The whole thing took 4 minutes, including slicing the bread. Diner cooks in the South still know this. Short order men in Ohio diners still make it. But somewhere along the way, it got labeled cheap, low class, something to be embarrassed about. Meanwhile, restaurant menus now sell fried bologna sandwiches for $14 and call them artisan. Your grandfather made it for 37 cents and called it Tuesday lunch. Number 23, egg drop soup, American style. Chinese immigrant workers brought this concept to California in the 1850s, and by the 1920s, tenement kitchens from San Francisco to New York had their own version running in 10 minutes flat. Bring 2 cups of chicken broth to a boil and salt it. Swirl the broth with a spoon to create a gentle current. Crack 2 eggs and slowly pour them in a thin stream. They bloom into silky yellow ribbons as they hit the hot broth. Add a crack of pepper. Add a few drops of soy sauce if you have it. Ladle the soup over leftover rice. And the meal was complete. This was not restaurant egg drop soup. This was survival soup. Filling hot, packed with protein, and done before the kids finished washing their hands. Number 22, hobo beans. During the Great Depression, freight train riders kept a small tin of this in their pack. It required only a fire, a can, and 10 minutes. 1 can of pinto beans, 1 can of diced tomatoes, half an onion, diced fine, salt, pepper, a pinch of chili powder. Everything goes into the pan together. Cook it hard and fast until the liquid reduces and the edges start to stick slightly to the bottom. Smash half the beans with the back of a spoon to thicken it. Eat it straight from the pan with crackers or cornbread if you had it. The slightly scorched bits at the bottom were the prize. Every person who has ever eaten hobo beans straight from a cast iron pan near a campfire or a 2-burner apartment stove will tell you the same thing. Nothing fancy ever tasted that good. Number 21, sardine toast. Before tuna salad dominated every deli counter in America, Sardines were the working man's protein. They cost a nickel a tin in 1940. They were packed with fat and calories, and they were ready the moment you opened the can. Mash a tin of sardines with a fork. Add a squeeze of lemon if you had one, a few drops of hot sauce, a little mustard. Spread it thick on toast, then run the toast under the broiler until golden. Top with a sliced raw tomato if it was summer. Coal miners packed sardine toast for lunch shifts. Dock workers ate it at the pier. It was fast, filling, and required no refrigeration. Today, food writers at fancy magazines have rediscovered it and call it a simple, elegant snack. Wine bars in Brooklyn are charging $22 for it. Your great-grandmother made it for $4 and ate it standing over the kitchen sink. Number 20, cornmeal mush across the rural South and Appalachia. This was the most reliable breakfast and dinner. Cornmeal was cheap. It kept for months, and it could be on the table in 8 minutes. Bring 2 cups of salted water to a boil. Pour in 1 cup of cornmeal in a slow stream, stirring constantly to prevent lumps. Stir for 3 to 4 minutes until thick enough to pull away from the sides of the pot. Pour it onto a plate. Drop a piece of butter in the center. Watch it melt. For dinner, families poured pot liquor over it. That was the cooking liquid left over from boiled greens, salty and flavored with smoked pork. A bowl of cornmeal mush soaked in pot liquor was not a meal of deprivation. It was a meal of deep, serious flavor that a generation of great chefs have spent entire careers trying to replicate. Number 19, pasta aglio. Italian immigrants packed into tenements on Mulberry Street in New York in the early 1900s brought this with them, and they made it in the 10 minutes it took to boil the pasta. Spaghetti, olive oil, garlic. That was the original recipe. While the pasta cooked, you sliced 4 cloves of garlic thin and let them turn golden in olive oil over a low flame. You tipped the drained pasta straight into the pan. You tossed it hard so the starch from the pasta water emulsified into the oil. A heavy hand of black pepper, maybe a pinch of red pepper flakes. 3 ingredients, 1 pan, 10 minutes. This is what feeding yourself on almost nothing looked like when you understood the fundamentals of cooking. Today, this exact dish appears on menus in Italian restaurants for $19. The immigrants who invented it paid about 8 cents for the whole pot. Number 18, creamed chipped beef on toast. The military called it something unprintable, but generations of American soldiers, factory workers, and Depression families called it dinner. A jar of dried beef creamed in a simple white sauce made from butter, flour, and milk, poured over toast, done in 8 minutes. The beef was already cooked and preserved. The sauce took 4 minutes to build in 1 pan. Toast the bread while you stir. Slide the toast onto the plate. Ladle the cream gravy over it. This fed the Army through World War II. It fed factory workers through the Korean War era. It fed entire Midwestern families through lean winters when fresh meat was either too expensive or unavailable. It disappeared from home kitchens not because it stopped working. It disappeared because it became associated with poverty and deprivation, which is exactly the kind of thing food companies want you to believe. So you buy their frozen product instead. The truth is, it is rich, filling, fast, and costs almost nothing. Pattern break. Here is what nobody talks about. The reason these dinners disappeared is not because people got richer and found better food. It is because the processed food industry spent enormous amounts of money in the 1950s and 1960s convincing American families that home cooking was a burden, that canned soup and frozen dinners were liberation, and that anything associated with poverty was something to be ashamed of and left behind. A family that knows how to make 10 satisfying dinners from a $10 pantry does not need to buy a $40 frozen lasagna. That is lost revenue, and lost revenue gets solved with advertising. We were sold the idea that forgetting these meals meant moving up. What we actually did was move from self-sufficiency to dependence. We traded knowledge for convenience and called it progress. Number 17, red beans and rice. Monday was washing day in New Orleans. The laundry ran all day, and nobody had time to tend a pot. Red beans went on the stove in the morning and simmered themselves while the work was done. But if you use canned beans, this dish takes 10 minutes and costs under 2. 1 can of red kidney beans with the liquid, half a cup of diced onion, a rib of celery almost, and half a green pepper. Sauté the vegetables for 2 minutes. Add the beans, 1 bay leaf, a shake of cayenne, and salt. Simmer hard for 4 minutes. Mash 1/4 of the beans against the side of the pot. Ladle over rice. This is New Orleans poor food. It is also some of the most nutritionally complete, deeply satisfying food on earth. Louis Armstrong used to sign his letters red beans and rice liors. He knew what he was talking about. Across the Appalachian Mountains, this was the meal that kept entire communities alive through hard winters and lean years. Beans were slow food, but leftover beans heated in a cast iron pan with a little diced onion and a splash of broth took 6 minutes. The cornbread was fast too, if you kept the skillet hot and the batter ready. But the beans alone, hot, a little soupy, with a raw onion and a piece of bread to soak the pot liquor, were complete. Families in western North Carolina and eastern Tennessee made this 4 nights a week. Not because they lacked imagination, because pinto beans are extraordinarily good when you know how to season them. Salt pork, a smoky ham hock, a pinch of red pepper, started low and slow, then stretched out over several days. Dishes like this didn't disappear because better food came along. They faded because people began to feel uneasy about the past they came from. Number 15, milk toast. Long before comfort food became a popular phrase, this was what people turned to in hard moments, whether they were ill, mourning, or simply out of options. Warm, simple, and humble, it was a small kind of relief when nothing else was available.